I was just the quiet intern, always the one photocopying files and carrying trays of tea, when I noticed an elderly man standing alone in the center of our crowded corporate lobby. Hundreds of employees rushed by him without even slowing down. The receptionist, Lena Marlowe, was trying to help, but it was obvious she couldn't understand what he needed. Then I saw it, the careful motion of his hands, the strain in his expression. He was signing. My pulse kicked up as I stepped forward and signed a simple, "Hello. How can I help you?" Instantly, his entire face softened. Relief washed over his eyes like he'd finally been heard. What I didn't know was that from the glass balcony above, Marcus Ellery, the CEO of the company, had witnessed the whole thing. "Before I take you further, tell me, have you ever learned something new just because someone you love needed it? Maybe a recipe, a repair skill, or even a language. If you have, share it below. Now, let me take you back to the morning that shifted everything in my life. My name is Nora Hale, and when I joined Bluebridge Strategic Media in Valencia, Spain, I was 23 years old, carrying equal parts hope and anxiety. Officially, I was a junior marketing intern. In reality, my work required no voice, no initiative, and definitely no courage. My days were spent printing reports, reorganizing storage rooms, and delivering drinks to people who barely noticed the tray in my hands. In meetings, I sat silently in the back, typing notes and arranging materials, never once daring to speak. To most of Bluebridge, I was background noise, present, useful, but invisible. But I hadn't always been this way. In high school, back in Brighton, England, I was loud, lively, and always volunteering for stage performances. Teachers described me as spirited and fearless. College changed that. A string of failed exams, unanswered internship applications, and professors who suggested I lower my expectations chipped away at me. Each disappointment felt like a weight added to my chest. By the time I graduated, the bold girl I once was had faded. I walked into Bluebridge hoping for a new start, but instead, it just reminded me of how small I had become. While others confidently discussed strategy, client analytics, and campaign ideas, I avoided eye contact, crowded elevators, and even the lunchroom. I took the stairs. I hid in quiet hallways. Silence felt safer. "Nora, can you take care of these?" My supervisor, Daphne Rowe, would ask while handing me large stacks of files or pointing at closets that needed sorting. Of course, I whispered every time, relieved that the tasks didn't require confidence I didn't have. But at home was different because of one person. My little brother, Leo Hale, who was 9 years old. Leo had been born deaf, something that overwhelmed our parents at first. They were nervous, slow to adjust, and unsure of how to help him communicate. But for me, helping him became my purpose. I threw myself into learning British Sign Language, BSL at first clumsy finger spelling, then hours of online lessons, then weekend classes at a community center in Seville where I was always the youngest student. One evening, curled up on the sofa, Leo tapped my arm. He signed slowly, "I love you, Nora." His small hands moved with such intent that tears filled my eyes, not only because of the words, but because he trusted I understood him. From that moment on, BSL became my proudest skill, the one talent that was truly mine. But at Bluebridge, it felt utterly useless, like being a violinist in a room full of electric guitar players. Sometimes, when no one was watching, I practiced under the desk while coworkers typed away around me. Once Lena, the receptionist from earlier, caught me moving my hands, practicing choreography. She teased. "Something like that," I said, shoving my hands into my lap, unwilling to explain. BSL belonged to me and Leo. It was our world, our language. Every day at Bluebridge, I stayed quiet and unnoticed. Every night, Leo reminded me why I mattered. He'd race toward me after school, eyes shining, excitedly signing stories about his day. We'd laugh, share secrets, and build a world that felt safe and ours alone. For those moments, I didn't feel small at all. I had always felt strong when I used sign language, but I never imagined that BSL would matter in the polished corporate world of Bluebridge Strategic Media. It was something I carried close to my heart, a private gift shared only with my family. I never expected this company, with its glossy presentations and competitive energy, to care about the quiet art of communication the way Leo and I understood it. But I was wrong, because on one ordinary Tuesday morning in the bright lobby of Bluebridge, I saw an elderly man standing alone, his lips moving without sound, his hands trying desperately to ask for help. And that moment shattered everything I thought I knew about being invisible. That Tuesday began like any other. October had settled over Valencia, cool and breezy, and the lobby buzzed with the frantic tempo of deadlines. Employees hurried past with tablets tucked under their arms, headsets on, their footsteps echoing across the polished stone floor. I had been posted near the front desk, helping assemble client packets for a presentation later that afternoon. It was supposed to be another forgettable morning, me in the background, doing what I was told, unnoticed. Until I saw him. He stood just beyond the glass doors, tall, elegant, dressed in a navy suit tailored so precisely it practically whispered old sophistication. His silver hair was neat, his posture dignified, but there was strain in the lines around his eyes. He hovered near the reception counter, his lips forming silent words, his hands moving in precise, practiced gestures no one recognized. My breath caught. He was signing, he was trying and failing to be understood. At the desk, Lena Marlowe, the receptionist, was flustered. She shuffled papers, her polite smile slipping into frustration. "Sir, I'm sorry," she said loudly, as if raising her voice would break the communication barrier. "Do you have an appointment? Could you write down who you're here to see?" The man shook his head. His hands moved faster, more urgently. Lena glanced at the growing line of visitors, sighed, and turned away to help someone else, leaving him standing there, dignified but defeated. I froze. I was just an intern. Daphne Rowe, my supervisor, had been clear that morning. Stay at the front desk. Help with the packets. Don't interfere with reception. The safe choice was to keep my head down, keep sorting papers, pretend I hadn't seen him. That was what the old me, the quiet, invisible intern, would have done. But then I pictured Leo, my little brother, how often people dismissed him, how often strangers assumed his silence meant incapability. The memory twisted something deep in my chest. Before I knew it, I was walking toward the reception desk, palms damp, heart thudding. The man turned toward me, exhaustion and caution in his eyes. I lifted my hands and signed, "Hello, can I help you?" His entire face transformed. Shock, relief, a slow, genuine smile. "You sign," he answered with graceful, fluent movements. Thank goodness. I feared no one here could understand me. My hand steadied now that we had a shared language. "I'm sorry you had trouble. What do you need?" he exhaled. A long, weary breath. "I'm here to see my son. I don't have an appointment." The receptionist seemed very busy. "What's your son's name? Maybe I can help you reach him." He hesitated, pride and uncertainty flickering in his eyes, then signed carefully, "Marcus Ellery." My stomach dropped. Marcus Ellery, the CEO of Bluebridge, the man whose name topped every company memo, the man whose corner office dominated the top floor, the man employees barely saw but everyone spoke about, and this was his father. "You're Mr. Ellery's father?" I asked, trying not to sound stunned. He nodded. "I know he's busy, but I was nearby and hoped to see him for just a few minutes. I didn't want to be a bother." He looked so earnest, so hopeful, that a pang hit my chest. This wasn't just a visitor. This was a father wanting to see his son. and from the sadness in his eyes, I could tell he didn't feel entirely welcome in that world. "You're not a bother," I assured him. "Please have a seat while I make some calls." I led him to the seating area, making sure he could still see me clearly. Then I turned to the phone at the desk, my pulse spiking. How was I, an intern with zero authority, supposed to request time with the CEO? Still, I dialed the executive office. A crisp voice picked up. "Mr. Ellery's office. This is Dana Whitlock." My stomach tightened. Dana was known for guarding Marcus's time like a fortress. "Hi, Dana. This is Nora Hale from the intern program. I have a visitor here who says he's Mr. Ellery's father." Silence. "Then his father, yes," I said. "He's been waiting here a while." Another pause. "I'll check with Mr. Ellery. Please have him wait." I returned to the elderly man. "They're checking. It may take a bit." He smiled kindly. "Thank you. My name is Alistair, by the way. Alistair Ellery." "It's nice to meet you, Alistair." I signed back. While we waited, we talked, or rather, signed. He told me about his years as an architect, the buildings he had designed across England, and the deep love he still carried for his late wife, who had taught at a school for the deaf. He spoke proudly of raising Marcus, though a sadness softened his eyes when he mentioned they rarely saw each other now. "He's always been determined," Alistair signed. "He wanted to prove that having a deaf father wouldn't hold him back. I'm proud of him, but sometimes I think he's forgotten how to just be." People glanced at us as they passed, some curious, some confused at seeing sign language used so openly in the lobby. For once I didn't care. For once I wasn't invisible. I was a bridge. 30 minutes passed, then 40. My phone vibrated with messages from Daphne demanding I return. But each time I looked at Alistair, hopeful, patient. I couldn't walk away. Then I sensed movement above us. From the mezzanine overlooking the lobby, a tall figure stood partially hidden behind a column, watching. My breath hitched. It was Marcus Ellery. His eyes were locked on his father and on me. The intern who had abandoned her assigned duties. The intern now engaging the CEO father in full view of the entire lobby. I had no idea what he was thinking. But one thing was clear. I wasn't invisible anymore, and consequences were coming. My phone buzzed again. A sharp message from Daphne. "Where are you? We need those packets now." I slipped the phone into my pocket and turned back to Alistair. "Would you like to walk while we wait?" I signed, expecting him to decline. Instead, his face brightened. "I'd love to. I've never seen where Marcus works." So I offered my arm and guided him past the bustling reception nook, where Lena fielded calls. We stepped into the heart of Bluebridge. I showed him the creative department, a forest of screens and inspiration boards. Designers looked up curiously. "This is Alistair." I explained aloud while signing. "He's an architect." A designer pointed at a digital layout. "What do you think of this grid?" Alistair smiled warmly. "Grids are scaffolds." He signed. "They vanish when the balance is right." As we walked, he shared more stories. "I left a few outlines on Valencia's skyline." He signed. "But my favorite work was always the smaller spaces, libraries, clinics, places where light listens. My wife believed buildings should listen to the people inside them." He added softly, "She sounds remarkable." I said, and signed back. After she passed, it had been just him and Marcus. Marcus was hearing, and as he grew older, he tried to protect his father from worry by hiding things, carrying everything alone. We moved into the account management wing, buzzing with deadlines and blinking dashboards. I explained the team roles as we walked. And that's when everything shifted. Victor smiled faintly. "Every field needs people who can translate ideas into actual structure. In architecture," he said, "those people were project coordinators." A UX assistant paused long enough to murmur, "Welcome, sir," and I interpreted the greeting in Pacifica sign language. Victor leaned closer. In my day, the loudest person wasn't the one leading. The best listener was. He signed. My phone buzzed again. "Where are you?" Respond immediately. I slid it back into my pocket and kept walking. We ducked into the staff lounge. Conversations flickered around us like static. Victor traced a hand along the counter, amused. Half the buildings I designed were powered by coffee. He signed with a dry grin. A junior writer approached, curious. "Who's he, Mr. Hale's father?" I answered. Victor added, "Tell them a city becomes beautiful when people make space for one another." I translated, and the room softened. The next hallway was lined with glass, walled conference rooms, clear boxes filled with urgency. Behind one pane, a marketing team rehearsed a pitch. Slides flashed, a laser pointer jittered over a chart. Victor watched the rhythm of the room, the exchanges, the cues. Nothing big is built alone. He signed, not towers, not companies, not families. My phone buzzed again. Then again. "This is unacceptable. Return immediately." Monica again. That tight knot returned beneath my ribs. For the first time since starting at Pacifica, doing the right thing meant ignoring the person who technically outranked me. I tried to keep my attention on the tour, but then I felt it. Eyes on us. A weight like a hand settling on my shoulder. Across the atrium, standing on the mezzanine, was a tall figure just beyond the spill of sunlight. Even from here I recognized the calm, measured posture. Marcus Hale. He was watching us, and I had a feeling he'd been doing so longer than I realized. I walked Victor to a wall displaying Pacifica, Digital's past campaigns, neatly framed wins and almost wins. He paused at a transit ad and smiled. My wife adored the metro. He signed. She said the city sings if you learn its language. She would have liked this place. I answered softly, then added in PSL, she believed doors should open both ways. Accessibility is a door. He signed. So is respect. I thought of Daniel, of all the nights he shared stories with his hands, stories no voice could carry. A creative director approached. "Your son is presenting to the board this afternoon," she told Victor. "It's a big one." I translated. Pride and worry swirled in Victor's expression. My phone buzzed again. I shut it off completely. Whatever consequences waited, I could live with them if Victor left this building feeling welcomed. "If you're tired, we can head back to the lobby," I offered. He straightened. "No, I want to understand this world." His world. I glanced again toward the mezzanine. Marcus was still there, still watching, steady as a metronome. Victor rested his hands on the railing. "He built all this," he signed. "I'm proud. I just wished," he stopped, unable to bridge the silence. I wanted to promise him that distance could be mended. Instead I signed, "He still needs you, even if he forgets to show it." Victor's surprise gave way to gratitude. "Thank you for seeing me," he signed. "Being seen is the hardest thing sometimes." I nodded, acutely aware of how visible I had become. The intern who abandoned her assigned duties to guide the CEO father through a company that hadn't prepared to welcome him. One final buzz rattled in my pocket. I ignored it. When I looked back at the mezzanine, Marcus stepped forward. Out of shadow into full view. His gaze fixed on us, a decision already forming on his face. Back in the lobby, I knew the grace period was over. My screen overflowed with messages from Monica Graves, and her expression said the last one had not been a suggestion. She marched toward me. "Lena, you abandoned your assignment, ignored every message, and left your team without support. Explain, now." I opened my mouth, but Victor shifted beside me. Before I could reassure him, another voice, calm, authoritative, cut through the air. "Actually, Monica," it said, "I need to speak with MS. Carter first." Conversation thinned instantly. Marcus Hale stepped out from the elevator hall. His tone was even, his eyes moving between me and his father, and softening. "She was helping my father," he said. Monica stumbled. "Mr. Hale, He lifted a hand, not harsh, final. "Thank you, Monica. I'll take it from here." The lobby fell silent. Employees stilled. Someone at reception froze mid-typing. Marcus turned fully toward Victor, drew a steady breath, and raised his hands. His signing was hesitant but intentional. "I'm sorry I kept you waiting," he said aloud while signing. "I didn't know you were here until I saw you with Lena. I've been watching for a while." Victor's face brightened, astonishment melting into joy. "You've been learning to sign," he replied. Marcus nodded. "I should have done this years ago. I should have met you in your language, not asked you to live in mine." Emotion rippled through the lobby, quiet but unmistakable. Victor stepped forward. The years of distance shrank. They met halfway and embraced, steady, wordless, powerful. Soft applause began, respectful, careful. I stood there, feeling invisible and impossibly visible at the same time. All I did was say hello. And somehow a door opened. They separated. "I'm proud of you," Victor signed. Marcus smiled, relief and regret tangled. "I'm proud of you too. I'm sorry it took so long." Then his gaze shifted to me. "Ms. Carter," he said gently, "would you come with me to my office? There are things we need to discuss." My stomach dipped. "Yes, sir." Victor nodded at me, a small gesture that felt like a blessing. Monica spoke up. "Sir, the deck for this afternoon. We'll handle it," Marcus said calmly, eyes still on me. He gestured toward the executive elevator. A small procession formed, Marcus in front, me beside him, Victor behind us. The lobby slowly resumed motion in our wake. We stepped inside. 3 reflections in the glass, my anxious face, Victor's quiet pride, Marcus's focused calm. For several seconds no one spoke. Then Ms. Carter, Marcus said, "What you did today was right, and you revealed a gap here I can't ignore." "Sir, I—" The doors opened. A hand slid through. The doors closed again, then reopened. Monica stepped in. "Sir, if decisions are being made about Ms. Carter, I believe I should hear them." Marcus considered, then nodded. "Very well." He pressed the button for the top floor. Silence enclosed us as the elevator rose. Marcus looked at Monica, then me, then his father, choosing his first words carefully. When he finally spoke, the sentence tilted the entire future. "Lena, I'd like to offer you a permanent position here." An intern, a father, and a CEO, now connected by something far bigger than titles. Just before the elevator doors closed, Marcus looked at me one last time. "Lena," he said quietly, "thank you for recognizing what truly matters." Back then, I had no idea how far that single choice would ripple outward, or how much would eventually be asked of me. 6 months later, 6 months had passed since that turning point in Marcus Hale's office, and what followed could only be described as a quiet revolution inside Pacifica Digital. Lena Carter, Director of Accessibility and Inclusion, the new title still felt surreal. But I didn't waste time. I began with a full audit of the company, everything from the website's back-end to the staircases in the north wing. For years, barriers had existed simply because no one had paused long enough to notice them. My first change was simple, but transformative. We installed building-wide visual alert systems, bright LED strobes synced to fire alarms, emergency calls, and entry notifications. At first, employees jumped every time the lights flashed, but by the end of the week, it was part of the building's rhythm. Next came live Pacifica sign language interpreters for every major meeting, review, and company-wide event. Captioning was added to all videos. Marketing teams received guidelines on making every presentation readable for employees with low vision or hearing differences. Not everyone loved the changes. I heard the whispers, "She's doing too much. Why fix what wasn't broken?" But I knew that resistance born from unfamiliarity always softened with consistency. One afternoon, I walked into the break room and stopped short. Monica Graves, my former supervisor, the same woman who once almost disciplined me, was sitting alone with an ASL learning app open. She was practicing signs for thank you, good morning, and coffee. She looked up, startled. I figured. She said awkwardly, "It was time I stopped pretending I already understood everything." I smiled, signed thank you, and she awkwardly signed it back. That was the moment the culture shifted. Before long, departments hosted optional PSL practice lunches, HR added inclusion modules to new hire orientation teams, voluntarily revised workflows to meet accessibility standards. What began as my personal mission was slowly becoming the heartbeat of Pacifica Digital. I worked with the brand team to refresh our public-facing campaigns, not with token phrases, but with authentic representation and accessible design. Developers rebuilt web pages to exceed accessibility standards, not for compliance, but for conscience. We launched a quarterly empathy and access bulletin, sharing stories from employees and clients long overlooked. One message still remains pinned to my office wall. A longtime client, who had stopped attending events due to hearing loss, returned to a conference we hosted, his first in years. Afterward, he sent an email to Marcus with 3 words: "I felt seen." Marcus forwarded it to me with nothing but a single smiley face. 6 months later, Pacifica Digital received stunning news. We had been nominated for the National Inclusion and Innovation Honor, a national award recognizing organizations redefining accessibility. Marcus insisted I attend the ceremony on behalf of the company. The event took place in Washington, D.C., inside a grand ballroom filled with leaders, advocates, and officials. I wore a simple black dress and Daniel's hand-made blue pendant, the one he crafted in art class when he was 9. When Pacifica Digital was announced as the winner, the applause was deafening. I stepped onto the stage, heart racing. Marcus clapped the loudest from the front row. At the podium, I looked to the PSL interpreter beside me, then began, "This recognition doesn't belong to one person. It belongs to the receptionist who learned to sign good morning, to the intern who asked how to support a colleague, to every team who rewrote presentations so everyone could understand them." I paused, then added, "Accessibility isn't a favor, it isn't charity, it's dignity." I touched the blue pendant lightly. "The greatest skill any of us can learn," I continued, "isn't analytics or coding or design, but the ability to recognize the humanity in every person." Backstage, a reporter asked me what came next. I smiled. This is only the beginning. But just as the applause faded, Marcus received a phone call. His face tightened, concern shadowing his expression. Something had happened, something neither of us saw coming. And just like that, a new chapter began. 6 more months later, half a year after the awards ceremony, Pacifica Digital felt like a different company. It wasn't just the physical upgrades, the dual alarm systems, the captioned videos, the accessibility design standards. It was the shift in spirit. Empathy had quietly become our true currency. Every Thursday at exactly 11:45 a.m., Victor Hale arrived, no longer the CEO father, but Victor, retired architect, company friend, and beloved storyteller. He and Marcus kept their weekly lunch tradition, and I often joined. At first, Marcus's signing was stiff and unsure. Now his hands moved with easy fluency. Sometimes I caught glimpses of them laughing together through the glass conference wall, hands flying, smiles unguarded. Daniel had become a familiar face too. During school breaks, he visited the office. At first, he stuck close to me. But on his second visit, a group from creative design waved and signed hello. His whole face lit up. By his third visit, he wandered confidently, sketchbook in hand, showing his drawings of futuristic buildings to anyone who would look. One afternoon, while waiting for the elevator, he tugged my sleeve and signed, "Do you think I can work here someday?" I knelt beside him. "If that's what you want," I signed back, "then yes, this place is ready for you now." It struck me then I had helped build that readiness. The once invisible intern had helped make others visible. I often thought about the moment everything changed, the day I simply chose to step forward. "You don't need a cape," I once told Marcus. "You just need to look at someone like they matter." Have you ever seen someone overlooked until one person chose to act? Do you think small actions can change lives? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next.